been sitting out here by the water. It's right in front of a main road where a lot of traffic does pass by, and then there's just like a little slice of land where all of these old homes have been on pillars, pylons, just right on top of the water, and it has seen massive amounts of storms, hurricanes, tropical storms, inclement weather, and somehow they have mostly all been, for the greater part of their existence, resilient. And then I look across this bay connective body of ocean to the other side, where there's another town in which I lived for roughly 5 years in a relationship with someone who I thought I was building a lasting life with. And up until the past year, once he decided to end the relationship, I took myself to Hawaii, got homesick, decided to come back with the hopes that eventually my heart's truest desires to get back with him would supersede any doubts or disarray that was happening within my mind, within my body, because I truly thought my inner knowingness was continuing to embrace the truth that, like, we could continue to make life work even through the challenges and even through what was constantly being proven to me that wasn't the same intention that he also desired. To be fully transparent, there was so much of the beginning of this year where I struggled to find my mental health and find ground, because it was the most emotionally turbulent consecutive time frame that I think I've ever had. And I've had a pretty emotional go. To know me is to also see the beauty and the challenges of relationship in life. And to know me is also to know that I am never the same person. Ever. Only better. And only with time able to hold a greater and greater container and space of awareness So this last year, specifically leading up to now, there were a couple months where me and this person did decide to reconnect and come back together, and it appeared to be a false light that was lit, even though words were said and energy was shared that made me believe that it was an actual flame that I was feeling. And I did continue to put all my eggs in that basket of believing that this person had my best interest at heart. On top of my naivety of the possibility that this person had changed too. And how that change would have been possible and would have appeared perceptually to me was way left field, way different than what I ignorantly believed. I associated this person with a happy home, somewhat misconstrued, but definitely healthy, a misconstrued, healthy healing where we're gonna make it work no matter what, even if we suffer through it for however long, maybe a short period of time. But I was made to feel that my greatest wishes and my desires were being fulfilled and were also being supported and were being made in reality, like they were being formed. Deeper, hopefully more prosperous, because it was like we could just dig it all out and figure it out along the way and keep trusting each other, and trust was certainly emphasized to the umpteenth degree. From him to me. And in the last go, I don't know how long necessarily before then, because what I'm beginning to understand was this person didn't even want me to begin with. And maybe just also made himself believe that this was what he wanted. So it was not only full of lies from the jump, but it was an extreme, pervert manipulation game that I can't even at this point, because of the person I have seen through this come out of it and who has now been somebody to convict me and think this little of our now has grown into a 7-year dynamic together. It is so extremely disheartening. It is a lot to do with healing massive amounts of trauma and has now created such a portal of understanding that I never imagined I would have ever come in to contemplation about. But it's interesting what the timeline of all of this stuff has been, because a couple of years ago, he became addicted to substances on top of already his marijuana consumption that has been way before our relationship began, which for somebody who is not necessarily an addictive personality to substances, I can only say what I can say from this vantage point, but it's also in the awareness of, I know that life is formed to each person individually, so specifically for their own journey. But in this case, because I knew this person before his harder addictions began, when they started is when I felt the distance between our collective truth, our harmony, our unity, our partnership began to really start to be extinguished. There was, it became what can everybody do for this person instead of what can this person do for everyone. Whereas beforehand, and the main reason, and everybody would, I have so many people to back me on this because I gloated about it for a very long time. The main reason, and I've written about it, and I even shared with him over and over again, like the reason I was so in awe with this person being my partner was because he was the most compassionate person I had ever met. He was a really bright light. And I started to not recognize him anymore. It's like I could see he was feeding a system that I don't even think he fully believed in. And for a long time it was, he blamed me from his wounded self, is what I can see. That his choices revolved around me. And before I understood what that really meant, I really internalized that as like something that was wrong with me. And what I have to believe and what I know to be true is somebody, and this is a message for anybody who's listening, if you're somebody who desires and appreciates a relationship, and that's not for everybody, it's not going to be the path that everybody chooses, and you have all availability to change your mind and recreate your narrative, and you're never stuck, and you're always evolving, so anything could be different, right? But what I know to be true is a really developed, strong masculine, and this is mostly what I'm talking to in this video, is a developed, strong masculine would not see considering their feminine a problem, would not see consulting their feminine before any decision they made a problem. And I fell for that. I fell for the shame. I fell for the guilt. I fell for the dismissal of my truth and my intuition. And that was a hypervigilance for me. And it became hyper real because my dreams were pointing to all of this. My internal dialogue was pointing to this, and I would share what I was feeling, and it was constantly told that it was wrong and that I was insecure. And come to find out, after realizing that everything that I had been feeling was actually more than truth. It was capital T truth, because it was actually happening, which was I was manipulated to believe that he was committed to me when in fact he was sleeping around with other people and coming home at the end of the night shaming me for hurting him. Day after day after day after day, the projection of his own workings were put onto me, making me feel like I was the one doing these things when I had never. And I actually believed it. I actually believed. This is the craziest thing. I completely ignored my own intuition, ignored what I knew to be true about my own self, and believed what he was telling me I was doing. Does that sound relatable? Some of you may relate to this dynamic as a narcissistic person, relationship. And I just never saw this person as that. And it leaves me to question and wonder if this is who he actually always was. And part of me has to believe that that's not true because of so much of what our history was, and the way that he cared was so beyond who he is
right now, I don't know this person. I don't know who has become this lost soul. And we could always probably argue that, like, that's most of us, because again, like, we're all just trying to make this life work, but you just never see some of this stuff coming. Like, if that person that I was originally in a dynamic with, a relationship with, was there, like, is he drowning right now behind the person who is controlling the entity, if we want to go dramatic, which at this point I don't think it is relative to the whole scheme of life, but like the demonic presences that are controlling him. Is he in there suffering too? I just, some days, struggle to understand, and then some days I just have to pretend in my mind that that's not the person who ended things with this situation. Like, I have to believe that, or at least again imagine in my mind that, like, that person either never existed, or maybe he's just on a different timeline, and I've had to genuinely let him go, and he's I guess passed on or something, I don't know. As many times as, like, I've cried and tried to let it go and heal and do all the things, it's like whoever has become this person that's not an unconditionally loving, aware person, I have to believe that that vessel still is and can still be a conduit for that, even if it doesn't involve, because at this point it can't involve me anymore. It's just fucked up. Can we say that? Can we say how fucked up it is? I never deserved to be treated the way that I have been treated. That's facts. I could sit here and point out all of the things that he's done to me. And anybody that would listen will be like, what are all the things you've done to him? And that's also fair. Just didn't realize we were at a tit for tat kind of game here. Is that what we're playing? Because it's not the game that I'm playing. And the people that do think that that was the situation that happened on my end, you're so far from the truth. So far from the truth. The crazy thing about having a story is that there's a potential for an audience, but rarely ever, even if you do have an audience, would it be received. And that's the really isolating thing about healing. The really heavy thing about knowing what actually happened and then having people interested in hearing what actually happened with the awareness and logic mindset of actually taking it in and absorbing it and going, okay, yeah, there may not be any winners here. There may not be any right or wrong actual doing. But there is truth to be had, and that's all not to say that, like, even in this way where he's kind of had to be the villain of my story lately, anytime I've had anything go on with anybody that I'm familiar with, I've always needed time to breathe, to understand, to process, to contemplate, to work my mind around to coming into, again, an awareness of, like, where am I in the story? Where are they in the story? And how can it come together again? And this just simply is not one of those cases. At least for the foreseeable future, because I'm in a whole different world. I don't know any of the people that were associated with him and I anymore. And these people have no idea what he has done or said, not only about me, but about them, which inevitably put me in the situation I am now, which is like, that's gotta be God, right? That's gotta be the divine working through to be like, okay, like, these people genuinely aren't meant to be around you, because if they're all gonna live in a sort of clouded reality without trying to get through the clouds and wish to stay in the clouds, then, like, those genuinely are not going to be people that resonate with the realities in which I'm walking now. And that's okay too. because the people that I find now and the people that are walking in the realities I am also now have completely different energy. And that is the ultimate trippy thing about this journey, is like it's constantly shifting and you're constantly meeting people who surprise you in so many ways. And when you start really tapping into listening and trusting yourself, trusting the spirit of the divine, the God, the creation, the source of everything that surrounds us and places us in situations and people's experiences, you get to see like it's such a living wisdom, a visceral experience that you would not be able to understand unless you were there. And I think about all the times I used to talk endlessly about the spiritual journey of awakening and the path of enlightenment and helping people, guide people through these things. It reminds me of that past self, that past version of me who was so full of hope and full of ready to take on that life and ready to see life in its expanding ways and wanting to walk with people through that life. And my language has changed, the way I associate with even these terms have changed, but it all still remains true to me that in those awakening moments when it's really challenging and really hard and really isolating and sometimes really lonely, you're met with that breath for a reason. And that breath just allows you to just sit in the uncomfortable sometimes, the ecstasy of like the not knowingness, and that's okay. And it just it will begin to flourish and it will begin to make more sense even when we don't need it to make sense. Like, that's not the goal. The goal is just to be, and it's just to experience. And I do live a very unique experience. I do live a journey that is not moldable or definable or fits into any one person's idea of a timeline or how things work. And not only have I always known that about myself, but it is actually played out in real time. And that's what I signed up for, being born in this time, where the stars aligned and
the astrological planes have imbued my essence and energy with their characteristics, with their qualities, with their material perplexities. And I'm finding the balance through all of that. And some days I wish so much that I didn't desire so deeply the greatest transcendent love of all time. But like, I know that there is people out there, and that there are energies oriented towards providing that experience for me. I don't actively seek it out, but I do invite in the possibility that because I have had a relationship with God, through another person, through the universe, through my friendships, through nature, through psychedelic experiences, I have a relationship, and I have known a relationship with God. The all, rather, I would say, so it feels maybe more relatable to better majority of maybe listeners. I think that is one thing that we can definitely agree on. Like there is some sort of intelligence, even though we don't have the words that feel comfortable enough to describe that. And it's scary, and it does elicit fear in many people. But I want to implore anybody who hears those words to just listen with what the body says. Listen with what the heart feels. But just remind yourself that the mind has a lot of thoughts. And those thoughts come and go, and they're meant to, so that we can continue to be in our creation, so that we can continue to be artists in every microcosmic, macrocosmic way that we have been intelligently designed to be. That our thoughts do bring interesting concepts. That our journeys are not so different from the other. And words genuinely and generally are pretty much made up anyway. We're just trying to convey what the human vessel, the human psyche understands so I'd like to continue to make those types of videos. That is the person that I am, and I've been denying myself of that for so long, and because it's evolved so much, I know that the audience can either go one of two ways. It either gets slimmer and fewer and far between, or I'm arising into another consciousness that has helped pull me up into a varying level of degree of conscious connection that I'm able now to share where I've come from and now what I'm walking into in a greater capacity and a greater resonance. And it's not going to be for everyone. It is certainly not going to be for everyone, and that's okay. But maybe our energies will fumble over each other at some point in time, and for that I'm grateful. For that, if it's the future present when it is that you're listening to this or watching this, I'm grateful for you finding me and listening with your heart, your soul, your spirit, your mind tapped in, tuned in, turned on. Thank you to the greats who have come before me, as I am a student just as much as I am a practicing master. And yeah, it feels good to be able to share. So I implore you to also share in whatever light that it takes on, when it takes on, and what a gift it is to use this form of technology to communicate. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for being able to be here, playing with my hair in the wind, watching the water roll, listening to the cars go by, using my senses, using so many different senses. We don't just have 5 or 6 anymore. It is exceedingly come in numbers and shapes and colors and sizes, and I'm glad to embrace those aspects of myself with also a community who can appreciate it in small ways, big ways, in whatever ways it takes, if it's helpful or if it's just to hear a voice at the end of the night so that you can rest and lay your head down knowing that you have hope for another day. And that is certainly true. Tomorrow will always come. The light will always prevail. Things that are hidden in the shadows will always come to the front. And just because something is not right now doesn't mean that it will never be. There is a gestation time, thank goodness. And I'm right there with you. I'm in that gestation period. I'm learning just to be here, you know. It's the full circle, the cycle of life that reminds me of how important that is. Because I be forgetting. So, until the next one, whenever that will be, please subscribe. That would be helpful. And don't leave this page without liking this video, please, especially if you have made it this far. My goodness. View time as well as likes and subscribes all add up and account to how I am growing on this platform and how I am actively collaborating with the all, the divine, the my gosh, what's it called? The algorithmic gods, to manifest, breathe in a bit more financial freedom. If I could have that from YouTube videos, that would be awesome. So if you too desire this, just remember that your blessings are returned to you tenfold and 3 times over. And I'm putting out that good energy for you just as much even if you don't do any of those things. I'm putting it out there for you because I'd rather give than take. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.